Okay, everybody, it's 3 o'clock. Time for the Department of Geography Spring Series Colloquium. Today's guest speaker is Mahetti Hassan. He is a PhD candidate in the Geography Department at the University of Florida. Yeah, go Gators. Mahetti has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in Geography and Environment from the University of Dhaka. And he has a master's degree in geoinformatics from the University of Seoul, South Korea. His expertise is in remote sensing and GIS and land use and land cover change modeling. And that's the topic he's going to speak about today. Take her away, Mahetti.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining with me here this afternoon. And thank you, Dr. Peak. And I would like to thank you, everyone of this Department of Geography. And my special thanks goes to my advisor, Dr. Jen Southard. I would like to thank you, my committee members, Dr. Peter William, Kevin Ash, and Scott Smith. I'd like to thank you all my friends, Department of Geography. And today I'm going to talk about my dissertation. And this dissertation actually combined with my 3 published papers. And the topics of my dissertation is crisis and environmental change in Bangladesh, a remote sensing approach. Though this is very generic topics, but I will focus very specific issue that taking place in different part of the world, and especially when it comes to Bangladesh, then people tend to think that it is a populated country, and yes, it is a highly populated country. Nearly 170 million of population living this country. This country is smaller than Florida, but it's having the population more than half of the United States, that making one of the top densely populated country in the world. This country also vulnerable to the global climate change, and it is expected that 20% of this country will be inundated by 2050 due to climate change, and that will displace nearly 30 million of population. This country also the hottest spot of tropical cyclone. Every year, the coastal area of Bangladesh impacted with tornadoes and cyclones. The Weather Underground reported that 26 of the 35 deadly cyclones occurred in this region, and nearly 6.5 million people displaced by natural disaster in the region over the last decade. 1/4 of this country is flooded every year due to its location and the heavy monsoon rains. During the summer, this country is flooded. And if we take a look at this elevation of this map, it's a very low elevation. It's nearly flat elevation, like around 6 meter elevation above the sea level. So when the countryside impacted by natural disaster, it brought huge population to the urban area. At the same time, this country experiencing huge urbanization, especially the Dhaka city, that's growing very fast with a chaotic and rapid urbanization. And this urbanization, these people are ending up in a slum, which is the most vulnerable. Again, they are pushing them into the vulnerable zone of climate change. And Dhaka, the World Bank and the IOM estimated that nearly 70% of these Dhaka dwellers migrate from surrounding countryside location that experience environmental shock. So this is a country like I heard that some people talking about like the country of Bangladesh is a God's laboratory of disaster. It has everything except volcanic eruption. So yeah, it is a kind of it is a country that that impacted by all kind of disaster except the volcanic eruption. So when this country, while Bangladesh is already grappling with uncontrolled population explosion, poverty, unchecked urbanization, and the devastating effect of cyclone, tornadoes, floods, and other natural disasters, it now faces new challenge, and that is a refugee problem. Since 2017, nearly 1 million of Rohingya fled to Bangladesh from persecution in Myanmar, and now have moved into areas that are highly ecologically important forested land and wildlife habitat. So given this background, I brought three issues here in my dissertation. One is disaster that has been impacting the region and the population. The another issue is urbanization in the developing world. And the third issue is a refugee crisis. These three issues, my dissertation combining these three issues, and these three issues is particularly relevant and is essential in the context of ongoing global and regional issue. As I said that one of the climate-propelled disasters such as flooding, and in coming decades, due to climate change, the increasing frequency of flooding will be increased, and especially the South Asia would be most vulnerable to global climate change. The second paper in my dissertation, I'm going to include is urbanization in developing world, and Bangladesh is one of the, like the Dhaka city, the capital of Bangladesh, is one of the fastest growing urban cities. It is one of the 6th largest city in terms of population in the world. And the third paper that I will focus on, refugee crisis. So geographically, my three study sites are located within Bangladesh because I found this regional and global crisis found in a single location, that is in Bangladesh. So I will begin with my third paper because I feel like this would be much more interesting. And this third paper will communicate with, like convey the information that will be more about like human-related, humanitarian-related, or human aspect. At the same time, here I'm applying remote sensing techniques. So, as I said, that the Rohingya refugee, they fled from Myanmar back in 2017 to Bangladesh, and they were settled in a place that are ecologically sensitive, and that area contains forest habitat, and I'll discuss about this in my paper. So if we take a look at this map, then we can see the red area is the Rakhine state of Myanmar, and this area actually the home of Rohingya refugee, and they migrated from here to this part of this Bangladesh, and when they migrated, or when they fled their country and took shelter this area, it was a forested land, and they cleaned this forest and they erected their makeshift camps here. But before going to that fact, I would like to bring the crisis of Rohingya refugee. So back in 1826 to 1948, it was under the colony of British, and that time the refugee actually, the Rohingya actually considered as an internally displaced population. They were impacted by tropical cyclone and drought, and they found that Rakhine state of Myanmar is their home. And in 1937, when the war breaks out, then the Buddhist majority of Myanmar people went with the Japanese side, whereas the Rohingya Muslim minority sided with the British colonial power. And the massacre started during that time. And 1945, when the partition split the Indian subcontinent, then these people, these Rohingya people, used to live in Myanmar. And again, 1948, the government or military government that time imposed a exclusionary citizenship law. And then 1982, the military government passes a legislation that makes it impossible for the Rohingya to become a citizen. But in 1990 and 1991, the massacre started in 1991 when the Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel laureate, was in power. And that time, 250,000 Rohingya refugees fled to Bangladesh. And if we take a look at this graph, then we can see that 1991 and 1992, it was the beginning of Rohingya refugee influxes into Bangladesh. So later in 2016, between 2000 and 2012, we have several violence in Myanmar, and that also brought numbers of refugees. And we can see here is the refugee numbers dropped here because these refugees were made kind of, they returned to their home or they made some desperate journey to other country, especially Malaysia, Thailand, and other country. But 2016, again, there was a reported violence, and that time we see the numbers of refugees migrated again from 2009 to 2015. 2016, there is another violence, like with a Myanmar military, and that was the beginning of the massive refugee influxes in Bangladesh. 2017, nearly 700,000 of Rohingya refugees fled to Bangladesh, and they took shelter in the Teknaf of Bangladesh. When the refugee came here, when the refugee flooded in the Teknaf region, and they were slashing the land, they slashed this land like the forested land, they cut down trees, and they are not only part of this cutting hill on trees. The international organization or the aid organization, they are working in that area. They also cut down this hill because they need their road and warehouse or other infrastructure to move their resources for the Rohingyas. So this picture was collected December 2019, and one of our 19, and we can see that this is the hill area with the forested land, and the refugee, all they like level this, cut down this hill and the trees, and they're making like their settlement here. So my dissertation is looking at like the rate and the expansion of the refugee camps here and the forest cover change, because we believe that when refugee move that location, that means there are almost 1 million, and there is a 1.5 million of local population. That means 1.5 million of population living this peninsula. And when refugees move that location, there are kind of like a small business also moving there. International organization, aid organization is there. So there are a lot of land cover change. We see they're undergoing there, land cover change undergoing there. So my study is especially focusing on the land cover change due to refugee influxes in this area. And back in 2018, when the refugee first influxes in this area, we published a paper, like my advisor, Dr. Saudot. She inspired us to work on this area, and this was the first publication that we brought this issue, Rohingya issue, and the forest cover change in that context. And this paper is well cited, and because that time government or like aid agencies, they did not have enough information about refugee camps expansion or forest cover change. And we are the first first initiative we made to brought this issue to the international context, or like the government or the aid agencies, so they can take care about this forest and they can have idea about the expansion of refugee camps. If we take a look at this map here, like the motion images, then we can see how quickly the refugee camp expanded from 2017 to 2020. And we see the barren land surrounding the refugee camps. Again, we see the greening area. So that time we published a paper that is based on 2 time series. One is a pre-influx, one is a post-influx. And the pre-influx means 2015 and 2016, and post-influx means 2017. But after that period, we see a lot of change going into this region, especially like land cover, forest cover change. So we need to see what's going on recently, what extent the land cover changes, and what about the forest cover. So here, with my dissertation, like the third paper of my dissertation, I am looking at like land cover change and refugee camps expansion. And the second objective of my paper is to look at forest fragmentation and forest fragmentation. And the question is here, is that the refugee is the only drivers of the forest cover change? Is there any other drivers that actually that drivers are there that actually driving the forest cover change? So to obtain the baseline information of forest cover change in that area, I'm using here 1992 to 2019 Lancet data. So I would like to see if there is any other drivers that actually driving the forest cover change in that area. So this is my study area. And if we take a look at this map, the red area is actually the protected forest area, forest boundary. And here, this protected forest is designated by IUCN, and there is a wildlife habitat, especially like endangered species, Asian elephant, and there are other like offshore birds and animals live in this area. And the red color is the pre-existing refugee camps. Here is like there were like 2 pre-existing refugee camps since 1990. And this refugee camp is registered by UNCHR and the government of Bangladesh. And that time there were like 40,000 refugees living these 2 places. And the blue color is actually showing the numbers of refugees after the post-influxes, after since 2017. And this area is a Kutupalong and Balukhali. This is the largest refugee camps in the world in terms of population. And this area hosting nearly 700 Rohingya refugees. There are also some other refugee camps here, Unchiparang. These camps actually located in protected areas. And this area here, also the small township located here, but mainly this area, the study area is dominated by forest cover. 50% of this area is a forest cover, and there is a small village community living here. Fishing communities living this side area. And this is also the like a famous tourist destination in Bangladesh. And it is the longest sea beach, like unbroken sea beach in the world. 165 mile longest unbroken sea beach in this world. So it is one of the popular tourist destination also. So when the refugee came here, then there are a lot of like socio-ecological changes going into this region. One of these changes, the population, like the host communities, they have been suffering because they have no job right now. Refugees are like very cheap laborers. They are providing more cheap laborers, whereas the local fishing communities, they are suffering because they have no job here. And there are a lot of things going into this area. So we will discuss later about this. So my study will mainly focus the entire area, but mainly focus this 3 camp area. So here is Kutupalong, Balukhali, and Unchiparang, and the Leda and Noyapara camps. And as I said, that we will look about the forest cover change, especially in this protected area. And so if I say something like this area is actually like very sensitive and hotspot of crisis, because these refugees are they came here for humanitarian ground. At the same time, from ecological ground, this is a very this area contains very critical ecological habitat. So in both direction, it's making kind of like hotspot of crisis. especially like humanitarian from the humanitarian ground, and both from ecological ground. For my study, I use Sentinel-2 data, that is high resolution images, and to produce land cover maps, we use two pre-influx like 2015 and 2016 data, and 3 post-influx 2017, 2018, and 2019 images. So 2017 is a period that the mass influxes happen. So I took 2 images before 2017 and 3 images after 2007, like 2017, 2018, 2019. We collected tending sample from the field, and we visited, like one of my colleagues, he visited this area 3 times, and we use random forest machine learning classification techniques, and we have 8 land covers. One is urban. I'm saying here we because my advisor with me, so that's why I'm saying here we. And urban, refugee camps, grass, salt pan, mangrove, hilly forest, and open soil. These are the major land cover classes that I found found in my study area, especially here. Mostly like here, like the refugee camps, salt pan, and the mangrove and hilly forest. And we also like independent validation. We collected tending samples. Like this is the first round tending sample we collected back in December 2017. That time we used a handheld GPS video camera, and it was the period of crisis. Like at that time, it was just evolving the crisis, and we used this video camera, and we took the tending sample using the video camera. Later, we visited this area December 2019, and that time we used mobile apps to collect tending sample. Nearly 250 tending sample were collected across this study area, especially the Kutupallam, Balokhali, and the other 2 camps area. And we took numbers of still like photo in different direction of the tending sample, so we can have details idea about the camps, inside the camps. And we did pretty like broad like robust investigation we did in 2019. And so finally, like we produce a land cover map here, like as I said, like the refugee influx land cover map 2015 and 2016, and the 3 post-refugee influx maps. If we take a look at this map in 2015, the red area is the refugee camps here, and it just little increase in 2016. But in 2017, we see a rapid increase of refugee camps here. 2018, it again increased more than 2017. And 2019, we see almost stable in terms of area of these refugee camps. Other than this, the other land cover we have seen here, the salt pan. This is the 2nd largest salt pan industry, like a salt production area of Bangladesh. And we see that the salt pan, before like the pre-influx period, we see the salt pan is right here. But after 2017, we see the salt pan area expanded this area because probably like our recent field investigation indicate that the refugees are very cheap labor. So they were employed here to produce the salt production here, like salt and salt-related stuff. So if we take a look at this graph, then we can see the built-up area. In 2015, nearly 200 acres of built-up area were found in Teknaf in my study area. In 2016, it increased, but we see like post-influx period, the built-up area going up because, as I said, that when the refugee came here, there are a lot of like a small business moving there. Even refugee itself doing kind of business. International aid organization, they have a warehouse there, and also like road and other construction going on going into this region, and the hotels and the other like hotels and especially like for international communities, they are building kind of high-rise building. And so that's why the build-up area is going up here. And the refugee camps, if you see here, 2015, it was less than 200 acres of refugee camps here. But 2016, it increased around 50 acres of refugee camps. 2017, we see 2,700 acres of refugee camp here. And 2018, it went up again, and it's around 3,700 acres of refugee camps. 2019, we see little drop here, but there is we found that there is some gray, I will discuss about it, why the refugee camps dropped here. And in our next slide, I will discuss more about this, why refugee camp dropped here. Grass and crops, especially there was some crops production surrounding the camp. And when the refugee came here, and some of the camps expanded in the agricultural field, and that's why the crop production in 2017 went down, and people actually abandoned their land because the refugee, they flooded this area with massive number, and local people are very scared because they are very the refugee are majority in this area, like they are 1 million, and where the local people are just probably like 400,000. So local people are become more minority in this area, where the refugee become the majority in that area. So people lost their land in this area. Mangrove forest actually depends on the water level. We see here the water level is decreased here. And also we have a report that the mangrove forest, there is a report of cutting mangrove forest, cleaning mangrove forest because of salt pan expansion. So if we see here, 2018, there is a salt pan expansion, whereas mangrove forest decreasing because of this salt industry expansion. So hilly forest, this is the important forest. We see that 2017, when the mass refugee flooded this area, we see the forest drop here, and then again it further dropped in 2018. But 2019, we see the forest coming back here. I will discuss more about it. Let us in my next slide. And so the composition of this land cover 2015, we see the forest was at 55% of this area, where in 2019, 54% of this area covered by forest. Refugee camps, there are almost 0% of refugee camps in 2015, but now 2% of this area is a refugee camp. So if I zoom in the camp area, like the camp oriented, if I discuss more about the camp related land cover change, then we can see this is Kutupalang and Balukhali area. This is the largest refugee camp, as I said. And we can see here is a tiny red, and this is the oldest refugee camps before the recent influxes. And there is hard to see any built-up area, right? And 2016, we see it expanded a little bit because that time nearly 50,000 refugees in 2016 joined here with the existing refugees. And then 2017, this refugee camp expanding in this direction, especially like the forest cover here. We can see here the forest, but the refugee when came here in 2017, they cleaned the forest surrounding the existing refugee camps. And then 2018, the camp further expanded in the direction. And 2019, we see some forest regrowth here. And at the same time, we see the built-up area here. This is a road, like this is a highway that recently made by international aid agencies. And we see the all like built-up area all the way like the road. And these are all built-up area, either like small marketplace or the construction or the warehouse of aid agencies. Another camp, the Unchiparang in 2016. This area is a protected area, and we see there is no refugee camp 2015 and 2016. But 2017, this area we can see like two refugee camps here. One is right here, one is right here. And 2018, it get little expanded this area, and 2019 also little expanded this area. And the other refugee camps in 2015, this is also the registered refugee camp, as I said, the oldest refugee camps. And after the mass influxes, they expanded all the way. So the refugee camp could not expand at this area because the elevation is high and the forest cover, like dense forest cover. So they only can expand this way and this way. And this is the salt industry. And now if we take a look at this graph, then the Kutupalong, Balukhali, this area, we see that there is a camp decreasing because the camp decreasing because we see that we recently, like our recent field survey suggest that there is a ongoing greening process, especially like in international NGOs and refugees. They are involved in reforestation, plantings, trees, and I will discuss more about it in my next slide. And Chakmarkul and Unchiparang, we see the refugee camp expanding. And whereas Noyapar and Leda, we see even in 2019, the refugee camp expanded. So our field data shows that usually when the refugee first came here, they used to live this area. This is like a vulnerable area, like especially the flood, like a risk for flooding. So the international organization, they moved them from this area to this area. So we see the much more expanding refugee camp this area. And these are pretty well-established refugee camps, well-built refugee camps here. So if we take a look at this Kutupalong Balukhali within 8 kilometer buffer, we see that the forest loss, especially the forest cover loss, is 2015 and 2016, 700 acres, 2016 and 2017, 3,300 acres, and 2017 and 2018, 2,100 acres. 2018 and 2019, we see 2,500 acres of forest regrowth. But if we compare with 2015 and 2019, there are almost 3,600 acre forest losses because these refugee camps replaced with the forest cover. But if we compare it 2018 and 19, there is 2,500 of forest, like forest regrowth is going into this area. And if we take a look at this NDBI map, this is like further evidence that why the greening and browning impact in that area. So here we see more greening like December 15, December 16, but December 17, we see like more browning here. But if we take a look at this 2020 and 2019, there is a small like green popping up this area. That means something going on here, especially this area. And if I like a built-up area, normalized difference built-up area, if we take a look at this, then we can see the similar evidence here. We see in 2017, lots of built-up area, like more built-up area, more surface than the December 2016. And this graph also tells something about like NDVI and NDBI. In 2015, the NDBI was the 15 and 16. We can see the NDBI is highest, where 2017 it dropped, like it sharply dropped, and then again it's slowly gaining, like slowly gaining here, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Okay, here is the Kulu. Kulu is like the refugee now, due to like increasing pressure on aid agencies, increasing pressure on government that this refugee clean the forest, so there is going to be ecological catastrophe. So the international organization, especially UNCHR, with the help of refugee and with the help of government, they have taken some initiative of forest reforestation program, and especially like these refugees back in home, they are kind of farmers. They have a agriculture production, so international organization with the help of NGOs, they provided like seeds, plants. So the refugees are doing kind of cultivation there, agriculture. They're producing vegetables, and so, and you can see they're all like green and green, and these are also the plantation that's going on here with the refugees because of the concern of environmental degradation due to forest degradation. And as I said, that this area is like habitat of wildlife. So it has been reported that 27 people were killed by elephant because due to loss of habitat, the elephants and many of the refugee camps are located on the located across the elephant trail. So elephant like they coming out and they invaded the refugee camps, and that's and so far like 27 refugees were killed by elephant. So the international organization, with the help of Bangladesh government, the refugees doing kind of like agriculture, they are involved in agriculture. At the same time, they are involved in plantation. And our field data in 2019, if you take a look at this picture, you can see this is a like plantation program going into the barren land. And here is this board, the billboard shows the USAID. This plantation program is sponsored by USAID, FAO, government of Bangladesh. And this picture shows the elephant. So here you can see this kind of like demonstration or like the plant trees save environment. That means kind of social awareness going on about the environmental degradation of the forest losses, and refugees involved in this forest reforestation program. And there is one program like cash program. So the aid agencies, they provide cash for forest plantation. So yeah, that is the kind of explanation, the potential explanation that the why greening and the forest coming back in that area because of this ongoing plantation. And as I said that my research, the second objective of my research at looking at getting the baseline information of forest cover chains. So this map is my study area, and this yellow color is this yellow dot is a protected area. And here I took images from since 1990, Landsat images. I used Landsat images in 1990 to every 5 years up to 2019. And then I used landscape fragmentation tool to understand the forest fragmentation. So here is quick definition of large core, medium core, and the small core. These are the core habitat of wildlife. So if this is greater than 500 acres, that's a pretty like large and compact core. And the medium core is defined to 250 to 500 acres, and a small core is less than 250 acres. So I would like to see how these things change over the period. If we take a look at this map in protected area, this area is a protected area and this one is a non-protected area. And we see in 1990, it's like pretty compact protected area, and you don't see any like yellow dot here. And yellow dot is means like a perforated area. Perforated means the outer area is like core area, the outer boundary of this core forest area. And here is the graph. Like this graph tells you like in protected area, the core area is decreasing all through the 1990 since 1990 to 2017. But we see the large core area increasing in 2019. As I said, that like the forest growth that we observed using the Sentinel-2 images, the similar result we see using the Landsat images, because as I said, there is an ongoing program like reforestation program, and the protected area also seen decrease, like it was increasing at the beginning of this period, but it started dropping from 1995 to 2000, and it went further down in 2005 to 2010 period. But at the end of this study period, we see the protected forest area increasing. But if we compare to the baseline, then still we see the large core forest decreased by 500 acres, where the large core forest decreased 15,000 acres in non-protected area. So protected area between 2019 and 2019 lost by 500 acres, where non-protected area lost by 15,000 acres, 5,000 acres and 50,000 acres. Now, if we track like a long-term vegetation, I used another model that called land trend rate to estimate the forest degradation. And this is a yearly NDVI, like a yearly annual basis, and we see 1991 to 2019. And if you take a look at this graph, it tells you like the numbers of pixel, numbers of cell impacted or degraded during that period. So now it started from 1991. We see the more than 5,000 cell cell or NDVI cell were degraded. And then we see here 1918, again we see 2015, but we see that the peak in 2017, 2018. The protected area, it was like degradation started beginning in 1970 and 1918, probably due to population here, like more and more population moving this area, and especially the age of this forest degrading higher started in 1917, 1918. Now, the question is what would be the drivers? So I took the precipitation data, and we see, as I said, that in our map, that this graph shows 1991, but I see here is precipitation is not the main driver, because we see it's 120 inches of rainfall received this area. 1998, but we see the 98 it got fair amount of precipitation. 2005 it received like the lowest precipitation. So probably here the precipitation might be caused. But in 2017, the refugee was the main driver of forest degradation, and even though this area received the highest amount of precipitation. So my other study suggests, like the other study suggests, that here the main driver of forest degradation is a wood collection, like the fuel wood collection by the local inhabitants, and the recently refugee added that trend. So the conclusion is the land and forest degradation in TechNav is a crisis within crisis. Initially, it was crisis within a crisis, and my study estimates that nearly 900 acres of forest were lost between 2015 and 2018. But when we compare to the baseline, the total forest loss is estimated to be like 11,500 acres between 1990 and 2017. The main drivers of forest loss in the area include fuel wood collection, both by refugees and the local host communities, and the rampant clearing of trees by refugees for camp expansion. To reduce this effect of deforestation, FAO, like Food and Agriculture Organization, has planted millions of fast-growing indigenous trees, especially in 258 hectares of land inside the camps, and 2,000 hectares of forested land surrounding the camps. So FAO started planting this tree in early 2018. So they took an initiative, like 258 hectares of land inside the camps and 200 hectares of land outside of the camps. So they planted millions of trees in that area since 2018. In addition, as I said, that the refugee, they started cutting down trees because they need fuel. Initially, the aid agencies provided them foods, but they did not provide any fuel wood. So here, nearly 200,000 of households. So they need fuel out. So they usually meet this demand cutting the forest. Then then the FAU started supplying them LPG cooking gas, cooking fuel, and this is they are providing both to the refugees and the host communities, because host communities demanded that, okay, refugee, you are supplying foods and supplying construction materials to the refugee, but we are host communities, we are suffering because we have no job now and our land was taken. So then the aid agencies now providing food and the LPG cooking gas to both host communities and the refugees. In 2018, UNCHR helped 100 female refugees farmers with trees, shrubs, herb and other crops to cultivate 107 acres of barren land inside the Kutupalam Balukhali camps. Yeah, this is the main reason that why like greening coming back in this area, because as I said that these people are farmers, and UNCHR they with the help of Bangladesh government and the local NGOs, they employed 100 female refugees first, and they supplied seeds. So the barren lands, the refugee can produce crops inside the camps on the barren lands. And this is the main reason that why this area looks much more greener than compared to 2018. And this study found that ongoing forest restoration and greening project is reflected in increasing forest cover while decreasing vegetation browning in the camp and camp surroundings. So my second paper, like this is the first paper actually. I begin with my third paper. This is, as I said, that this country is highly vulnerable to flood. 1/3 of this country get flooded every year. And we published this paper back in like the last year, and I think that my time is going to up. And this paper actually we utilized new conventional GIS tools to develop a methods for quickly and rapidly assessing the flood, and so that map can be used for rapid flood management purposes. I'm not going to discuss more about interaction section. So here is my colleague Amobi and R.D. Smith, and my flood data were given to this to my colleague, and I asked them to make a map with this data, and they tried to make a map, but they presented different map with the same data. So here is my argument is, if you give this data, like the flood data to 100 people, they will make different 100 ways of map. That means there would not be any standardized mapping techniques. But looking at this flood, it happens very quickly, and we need a very quick assessment tool, and we need to respond very quickly. And especially it is very true for developing country or developed country both, because it flood like the disaster, we need a quick response. So here we argue that we need a standardized map that can communicate to everyone who are making this map. So in our study, we propose like local indicator of a special association, like LISA statistics. LISA statistics has been widely used in different fields, especially like ecology, landscape ecology, medical geography. Yeah, they use a lot LISA statistics, but this type of this tool never been used in flood mapping. But we found that this tool is very useful for flood mapping, because as I said that when you give this data to different peoples, like different experts in GIS, they will produce different map, because we have a different tools, different setup with the GIS. So it would not be very unique or standardized map. So our case study is a southwestern part of Bangladesh, and this is the highly flood affected area, and also the like every year this area battered with tornadoes, cyclones, and in the past, it has been reported that thousands of people were killed killed by tornadoes, flood, and cyclone. And my hometown is right here, so it has been affected. It is affected flood and tornadoes every year. And this cyclone, like super cyclone Amphan, that hit across the southwest of Bangladesh in May 2020. This is one of the deadly cyclone over the last decades. And if you see these images, these are taken during the flood, and the flood looked like this. It washed everything, it destroyed everything, road infrastructure, everything. And the precipitation data, if we take a look at this area, this the rainfall was the highest in May 19 and May 20. But actually, some of this area, the track of this cyclone that received nearly 200 millimeter rainfall during the tornado times. And we use this data like Sentinel-1 data, radar data set, instead of multispectral images. Multispectral images look like this. It is like a cloud cover, so it is no longer useful for monsoon during the monsoon period. So we use a radar data set to detect the flood area, and the dark area is actually the flooded water, and what is the white area, or like this is a non-flooded water. So we use different sets of data set, and then we use support vector machine to classify the flood and non-flooded area. And then we use both like Sentinel-2 images and Landsat images. And only the area that are not cloud cover, we selected that area to pick up the tending sample. Since it was it was locked down due to COVID, and the area was damaged heavily, we could not get access to the area. So we had to rely on set like multispectral images, and we collected tending sample on the validation point is the multispectral images, and we see this is like the pre-cyclone events and the post-cyclone event, and we see this is a flooded area. And so we finally produced this map. We extracted a flooded or non-flooded area, and we can see that during the cyclone period, there are like 8% of this study area was impacted by flood, and that corresponds to nearly 2,200 square kilometer. Okay, so here is our tools that I said that the hotspot analysis. And again, I am saying that this tool never been used. This is a very common tool in GIS, but never been used in flood mapping. So here, if you use this tool, you can quickly visualize the hotspot of this flood compared to mapping randomly. So if you use this data for like a generic mapping or like the normal mapping, then you will not have this cluster. It will be kind of like distribution in different part of this study area. So here is our study contribution and the strength of this using this LISA statistics tools. We use the Moranai also to validate our research, our findings, and both of these like Gettys or GStar and Moranai, they are showing the hotspot of flooding in this area. It is this is a mangrove forest, so it is just a northeastern part of this mangrove forest is the hotspot of the flooding area, and we see that the flooding, like the zone of this hotspot of flooding area, decreasing over the period, but still remaining here. That means this area is the highly vulnerable area for flooding. So the planning communities can look at this area and they can investigate the flooding, why this area having much more flood compared to the other areas. So our conclusion is that this is very important contribution to improving quick identification of flooding hotspot, given the need for timely response, especially in the developing countries with limited resource and highly vulnerable to climate change. Future work is recommended to integrate ground data, land cover information, stream gauge data, and predictive model to achieve a long-lasting flood management goals throughout the coastal region of Bangladesh and other affected areas. So we published this paper, but it's kind of down here. Okay, I think that's end of, yeah. So we published this paper in remote sensing with my colleague Cabinesh, my committee member, and my advisor. And yeah, and thank you for listening. And if you have any question, then I'm happy to answer.
Okay, Mahetti, thank you very much. The class period has ended. We're out of time, so I'm going to call this. If anybody has any quick questions for Mahetti after I end the meeting, that you could stick around on the Zoom and ask him. But we've exceeded the time period, so we're going to call the meeting right now, the Zoom meeting. Thank you again for your talk. And if anybody wants to stick around, just at the end, if anybody has any questions. Everybody else, we'll see you next week. Leandra Merz is on schedule for the last colloquium of the series in the spring 2021.